explained you one after the other. What are the steps? So let us write. Inhalation. We will start with inhalation. Okay. Inhalation is a physical process. I told you there is no chemical change at all in the body. There's no physical change in the body, I told you. So let us understand what are the steps one after the other. The first is the rib cage. The rib cage move forward and upward. The rib cage move forward and upward. Number 2 is the diaphragm. What is the diaphragm made up of? I told you. Smooth muscles. So it should be voluntary or involuntary in nature. Made up of smooth muscles. It should be voluntary or involuntary in nature. Involuntary. Always to be remembered. The diaphragm contracts and flattens. The diaphragm contracts and flattens, becomes flat. Third is chest cavity increases. Chest cavity increases. Atmospheric air rushes into the lungs and the lungs are inflated. Inflated matlab to get filled with air. Bloated up, inflated. So these are the events that take place during the process of okay. So now these are the 4 steps that we are talking about. This Anya. So these are the 4 steps that we are talking about. The ribs are forward and upward. Diaphragm is contract and flattened. The chest cavity is increasing. That is the reason the atmospheric air would rush in. The atmospheric air is rushing in, and if that is happening, the lungs are filled with air. Lungs are inflated. So these are the 4 events that is happening during inhalation. Just after this, exhalation should happen. Just after the inhalation, exhalation takes place. Now for exhalation, you will have to write on your own, right? Next paragraph, likho on exhalation. But exhalation mein changes kya hoga? Tell me now. Exhalation and inhalation, just the opposite events. So if I talk about exhalation, the rib cage would move backward and downward. Backward and downward. Back to its position now. Diaphragm is not contracted. Diaphragm is relaxed. Diaphragm relaxed and not flattened, curved. Diaphragm is curved. Chest cavity not increased, now it decreases. The space is decreasing. I'm sorry, just add one word here. Space of chest cavity. Just add this. Space of the chest cavity decreases and It is not atmospheric air. Now we will write alveolar air, meaning air of the alveolus. Alveolar air rushes out of the lungs and the lungs are deflated, meaning squeezed off. The lungs are deflated, matlab squeezed. They are all squeezed now. All the alveolus squeezed now. So this is what has happened when we are talking about inhalation and exhalation. This is what would happen in our body when we are talking about inhalation and exhalation. So I just now mentioned, if it is a concept of inhalation, what happens? And right after inhalation, now what are some of the other changes in the body? Something more that you'll have to remember when we are talking about the concept of inhalation, exhalation is a set of muscles. Now we are saying that the rib cage is moving forward. Can the rib cage, can the bones of our body move on their own? The bones of our body cannot move on their own. The bones are always been moving. The bones always move because of the presence of muscles. The bones of the hand, can they move on their own? The bones of the fingers, can they move on their own? No, the muscles surrounding the bones always contract, relax, so the bones move. Same like that. If I talk about the ribs are moving forward and upward, or the ribs are moving backward and downward. That has been also brought about by certain muscles. The names of the muscles are mentioned in your book. So only that name you'll have to remember. What are those muscles? The type of muscles which are attached to the bones. What are those muscles known as? The intercostal muscles. Which are those muscles attached to ribs? The muscles are known as intercostal muscles. These muscles are attached to the ribs. On the inner surface of the ribs, they are attached. And these are the muscles which are contracting, relaxing. And the ribs will move forward, backward, upward, downward. So that is what we are understanding. Talking about this entire concept of diffusion, talking about this entire concept of breathing and inhalation and exhalation. Now the next part that we are going to study would be gaseous exchange. We will learn the definitions first and then the process. Once you are done with this, we will learn the definition. We had already written down the definition of breathing. Now we will write down the definition for the rest. Number 2, what is the next part of respiration? The next part of respiration is gaseous exchange. First, be aware what you are studying. What is the definition? Yes.
Thoracic volume.
What is?
Thoracic volume.
Thoracic volume. Thoracic volume meaning the chest cavity. Same thing. Chest cavity I had mentioned, space of the chest cavity. You can also write it as thoracic cavity. It is the same thing. Thoracic cavity, chest cavity, one and the same. This is the space inside the chest cavity. Thorax, this particular region of our body from the neck till the stomach. This is known as the thorax. Thoracic cavity. Clear? Now, when we are talking about the definition, let us learn the 3 more steps for respiration. Breathing, we have just covered. Let us talk about the next. What are the next 3 that we are going to study? The next 3 that we are going to study, number 2 would be, the next phase is, write down, gaseous exchange. The next now that we are going to study would be gaseous exchange. Gaseous exchange. Write down the definition. Gaseous, should I erase all of it? All of you are done?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 4.
None.
ये वाला? Okay, ठीक है. Gaseous exchange. Write down the definition of gaseous exchange. The diffusion of oxygen. gaseous exchange, the diffusion of oxygen from the alveolus, diffusion of oxygen from the alveolus to the blood, and the diffusion of carbon dioxide from diffusion of oxygen from alveolus to the blood, and diffusion of carbon dioxide from the blood to the alveolus. Carbon dioxide from blood to the alveolus is known as gaseous exchange. देखा? Is known as gaseous exchange. In this process, next line, you write. In this process, hemoglobin plays. In this process, hemoglobin का spelling क्या है? In this process, hemoglobin plays a major role. You have studied about hemoglobin? हाँ कि ना? कहाँ पे? हाँ, tissues में पढ़ा. Last year, did you study hemoglobin? हाँ? Hemoglobin plays a major role. Hemoglobin. So ये है gaseous exchange. We'll write about tissue respiration. Number 3. Right. Number 3. What is the third step we will learn now? The third step is tissue respiration. Third step is tissue respiration. Write down the definition. Tissue respiration. The diffusion of tissue respiration, the diffusion of oxygen from blood to the tissues. Diffusion of oxygen from blood to the tissues, and carbon dioxide from tissues to the blood. Carbon dioxide from tissues to the blood is known as tissue respiration. And the last step is cellular respiration. Number 4, you will write cellular respiration. I'm just giving you the definitions first so that when I start with the process, you are following one after the other what you are supposed to know. Number 4, cellular respiration. That's right. Cellular respiration is the same thing that I started today with. What is cellular respiration? The process of breakdown of the glucose. Process of breakdown of the glucose. Process of breakdown of the glucose in the body cells. Process of breakdown of glucose in the body cells in the presence of oxygen. In the presence of oxygen to release carbon dioxide, water and energy. to release carbon dioxide, water, and energy. Okay. So now we are going to study one after the other. We had studied breathing, what happens during breathing, we came across. Now we are going to study one after the other, the gaseous exchange. But before that, what am I drawing is, I am trying to find out what type of exchanges are happening between the alveolus. Now what are these membranous sac-like structures? What are these membranous sac-like structures known as? This known as alveolus. What are the two special features of the alveolus we came across? They have got a thin wall and they are richly supplied with blood vessels surrounding. So we are going to come across this, but now that talking about the blood vessel, we have to find a relation of the blood vessels surrounding the alveolus, surrounding the lungs all over. Blood vessels surrounding the alveolus, this entire cluster of alveolus in our lungs that we know is richly supported with blood vessels, has got a rich supply with blood vessels. But from where does this blood vessels originate and what are those prominent blood vessels supplying blood to the lungs? That has to be understood. So I would start that these blood vessels from the heart, there is one specific blood vessel known as the pulmonary artery. There is one specific blood vessel known as pulmonary artery. What are we trying to understand? How does the lungs get the blood? How does this alveolus get the blood? We are constantly mentioning that the alveolus get, or the alveolus are surrounded by, numerous blood vessels. But from where does this blood vessels arise? From the heart. From the heart, one major blood vessel. What is the name of this blood vessel? Pulmonary artery. What type of blood does it carry? The type of blood that it carries is known as deoxygenated blood. What is the type of blood that the pulmonary artery carries? Deoxygenated. What is the meaning deoxygenated? It has got a higher proportion of carbon dioxide than oxygen. What is the meaning of deoxygenated blood? The proportion of carbon dioxide is much more than oxygen. So the pulmonary artery will carry the blood where? To the lungs. And what is happening in the lungs? The process of gaseous exchange will happen. The process of gaseous exchange will happen. So the blood which comes out from the lungs is comparatively pure. And what is this vessel carrying the blood away from the lungs? And this is known as pulmonary vein. What is the type of the blood? The type of the blood here is oxygenated. What is the meaning? Oxygenated blood means what? The blood is comparatively purer. Purer matlab higher amount of oxygen, less amount of carbon dioxide, क्योंकि lungs में gaseous exchange हो चुका है. And then this blood will again go back to the heart. So right now, this concept elaborate बाद में the third segment of the chapter you are going to study. But अभी as of now ये basic चीज याद रखना है, that is how does the lungs get the blood? Definitely the blood must be coming from the heart. But relation क्या है? Relation यही है. You are to know the names of these two vessels now. Which vessel carry blood to the lungs? Pulmonary artery, जो heart से arise होता है. And which vessel gives away blood from the lungs? Pulmonary vein. Where would this vessel go and meet, or where would it supply the blood to now? Again, it will supply the blood to the heart. So what type of blood does this pulmonary artery carry? Impure blood. Deoxygenated blood. Deoxygenated matlab carbon dioxide concentration is higher than oxygen. Higher than oxygen also ये नहीं समझना है कि carbon dioxide is 98%, oxygen is just 1% or 2%. Not like that. If carbon dioxide is 55%, 50%, oxygen would be something around 45%. Or if carbon dioxide is 60, oxygen is 40. उतना ही basic difference होता है in our body. The difference of oxygen and carbon dioxide is not more than 15 to 20%. 10 to 15% normally in our body. 98 and 2% कभी भी नहीं होता. Okay? So when I'm mentioning higher concentration of carbon dioxide, यही हमेशा याद रखना है कि carbon dioxide, if I talk about pulmonary artery, it may be something like this. 60% है तो oxygen कितना होगा? 40%, 35%, उतना ही बेसिक डिफरेंस रहता है, इससे ज्यादा नहीं रहता है in our body. So pulmonary artery, pulmonary vein is the vein getting blood from the lungs to the heart. What type of blood does it carry? Pure blood, oxygenated blood. So इसमें भी ऑक्सीजन का प्रोपोर्शन ज्यादा रहेगा, comparatively थोड़ा सा ज्यादा than carbon dioxide. With this understanding, all of you will write down this in your notebook. ये दो नाम you should know, and what is the meaning of oxygenated, deoxygenated blood you are supposed to know. Once you are done with this, then I start with this understanding of the gaseous exchange, the tissue respiration, and the cellular respiration. Just write down this part. The different types of blood vessels. Two major types of blood vessels. Now, let us talk about that. What is now gaseous exchange? Okay. Once you are aware about oxygenated, deoxygenated blood, so let us talk about this. This is an alveolus, and what are we drawing here? These are blood capillaries. Try to understand. These are blood capillaries. All these blood vessels surrounding. So here we are trying to come across that these alveolus, after the process of inhalation already we had studied, taking in of air, filling the air in the lungs. So wahi concept se we are going to start. After inhalation, what? The entire alveolus, every single alveolus filled with air. So every single alveolus is filled with air. Every single alveolus filled with air. But can you tell me, intentionally I am writing more of oxygen than of carbon dioxide when we are dealing in air. I already mentioned, we are not talking about the other different components of the air. Yes, sulfur compounds, other different type of hydrocarbons are there, nitrogenous compounds are there. वो अभी हम यहाँ पे include नहीं करेंगे because the blood and the body has no method of taking them in. The blood can only combine with oxygen or carbon dioxide, so that's the reason we are only talking about oxygen and carbon dioxide. But why did I write more of oxygen here? Why not carbon dioxide? Why did I write so less of carbon dioxide and quite a number of oxygen molecules I have mentioned here? Why like that? Who can tell me this? When we inhale, the air that we inhale, the air that fills up in our lungs has got always more of oxygen. Why? Because atmospheric air has more of oxygen. So when I talk about the atmospheric air, if in the atmospheric air that we are taking in, breathing in, what is the proportion of oxygen? Roughly 21%. What is the proportion of carbon dioxide? Much, much lesser. Proportion of oxygen and carbon dioxide, if I compare in the atmospheric air has got almost 21% oxygen and 0.03% carbon dioxide. So there's a big difference. So when we are inhaling and the air that is getting filled in the lungs has got more of oxygen, much lesser of carbon dioxide. And I am comparing this lungs or this alveolus with the nearby blood vessel. Surrounding every alveolus, there are a large number of blood vessels. So I am talking about one of them. So what will happen? Here oxygen is more, comparatively in the blood oxygen is less. So here oxygen is more, comparatively here oxygen is less. So what should be the direction of the oxygen movement? From a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration, a process known as diffusion is happening. So what would be the pathway for oxygen movement? ये होगा direction. So the oxygen is definitely moving from the lungs towards the blood, from the alveolus towards the blood. But at the same time, we are also to know in the blood there are certain cells. Which are those cells I am mentioning? The cells known as the RBCs. What is that one special feature of the RBCs we are supposed to know? That one special feature of the RBCs that we are supposed to know is RBCs has got a pigment known as hemoglobin. What is hemoglobin? Hemoglobin is also known as the respiratory pigment. Why is it known as a respiratory pigment? Because it has got a great affinity to bind with respiratory gases, oxygen and carbon dioxide. This is known as the respiratory pigment. Earlier you have also studied that this is the pigment which is responsible for the red color of the blood. But apart from that, you are also to know that this is known as the respiratory pigment. Why? Because it can bind with oxygen, it can bind with carbon dioxide. So now that I'm comparing that here oxygen is more and here oxygen is less. So what will be the direction of oxygen transport? Lungs to lung. Diffusion I'm talking about. A simple process of diffusion is happening. Oxygen moving from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration, and then make a bond with this compound hemoglobin. So what is this compound now formed? The new compound formed is something like this. Hemoglobin and oxygen will make a bond, will make a compound. What is this known as? Oxyhemoglobin. This is known as oxyhemoglobin. So what did I mention? That when the oxygen moves from the lungs towards the blood, oxygen always combines with hemoglobin of the RBCs and results in the formation of a temporary compound. And what is this temporary compound known as oxyhemoglobin? And this oxyhemoglobin will keep traveling in the blood, try giving oxygen to the body cells. So ये हो गया first one part where we understand how does the oxygen move when the oxygen is in the alveolus nearby the blood vessel. So this is the pathway. Now this oxyhemoglobin is traveling in the blood. How does oxygen travel in the blood? How is oxygen transported in the blood? Your answer is in the form of oxyhemoglobin. Can I ever tell you that oxygen is moving in the blood only in the form of oxygen molecules? कभी भी नहीं. Oxygen never travels in the blood in the form of oxygen molecules, but it travels only in this form, oxyhemoglobin. Now, in the course of circulation, what will happen? The oxyhemoglobin comes near tissues. Definitely. When I'm thinking of all the blood vessels in our body, I mentioned that surrounding the lungs, there are large number of blood vessels, but these blood vessels in the form of a network, they are moving towards our arms also, towards our legs also, towards the bones also, liver also, stomach also. So can I understand that these blood vessels which are running from the lungs and spreading up all over the body, definitely they are coming across other different parts of the body also. So the blood has oxygen in what form? Oxyhemoglobin. So जब ये oxyhemoglobin, जब ये compound कोई tissue के आसपास आए, then what is the fate of this compound? क्या ये ऐसे ही रहेगा या it breaks off? The compound breaks off. So ये oxyhemoglobin lungs के आसपास बनता है, and when it comes near the tissues, the compound breaks down. Breaks down मतलब the bond breaks, and this oxygen will always have a tendency of moving towards tissues. What is this process? ये भी diffusion है, because this blood capillary walls are very thin, and यहाँ पे oxygen ज़्यादा, यहाँ पे oxygen कम. So when I compare the tissues and the blood, where is oxygen more? Always in the blood vessels. When I am comparing the alveolus and the blood, where is oxygen more? Always in the blood. So the movement of these gases are always from a region of high to low, and that is यही simple rule apply हो रहा है all throughout. So now when I talk about this oxyhemoglobin which is in the blood, oxyhemoglobin breaks down where? Near the tissues. क्यों? क्योंकि oxygen will always have a tendency of moving from a region of high to a region of low concentration. तो अब ये tissues में सारे tissue cells में oxygen जा रहा है. But I want to also know that ये जो tissue cell में oxygen आया, what will be the fate of this tissue cell? What will the tissue cells do with this oxygen? What will this tissue cell do with this oxygen? Let us try to understand what is this tissue cell using this oxygen for. Tissue cells में already glucose है by the process of assimilation. Already we have studied this a number of times. Tissue cells में already glucose है by the process of absorption and assimilation. And now they have also got oxygen by the way of diffusion, breathing, gaseous exchange. Now next one, what is the fate of this glucose? Breakdown to carbon dioxide, water and energy. Breakdown to carbon dioxide, water and energy. Abhi filhal we are not talking about the water and the energy part because we try to understand what? Gaseous exchange, tissue respiration. But ये जो process है, what is this process known as? This process is the fourth part that we are talking about. What did you write? Definition of cellular respiration? Breakdown of glucose in the body cells in the presence of oxygen to give rise to carbon dioxide and energy. So this is what is happening inside every single body cell. This is what is happening in our muscle cells, in our bone cells, in the cells of the stomach and the intestine, everywhere when oxygen is reaching there by the way of circulation of the blood. So ये जो process हुआ in every single body cell, this is known as cellular respiration. But cellular respiration के बाद एक major component जो release हुआ है apart from the energy, carbon dioxide. So now you tell me, carbon dioxide concentration should be more here or here? कहाँ पे होना चाहिए? Tissues में. So definitely the carbon dioxide from the tissues will move towards the blood. Again, from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration. तो अब तो ये है कि oxygen is moving from the blood to the tissues and getting utilized. After getting utilized, जो carbon dioxide release हुआ, the carbon dioxide is now moving from tissues to the blood back. But will all this carbon dioxide, like oxygen, get bonded with hemoglobin? No. Hemoglobin loves oxygen more. Carbon dioxide के साथ ज़्यादा दोस्ती नहीं है. So when we are talking about the affinity of hemoglobin for carbon dioxide is comparatively lesser. So because of that, the hemoglobin will bind with carbon dioxide in a small amount. So small amount of hemoglobin and carbon dioxide will form a bond, and a major amount of carbon dioxide will remain in the form of bicarbonate ions or carbonic acid in the blood. What am I mentioning? I repeat again, try understanding. After the process of cellular respiration, जब cells के अंदर oxygen release हो रहा है, since tissue cells में oxygen more, carbon dioxide more, the carbon dioxide will always travel from the tissue towards the blood. अब जब carbon dioxide काफी सारा blood के अंदर चला गया, what is the fate of that carbon dioxide? Will all of it go and combine with hemoglobin? No, only a small, because hemoglobin does not have a great affinity for carbon dioxide. So bonding capacity of hemoglobin for carbon dioxide is less. This is the feature why a large amount of carbon dioxide remains in the blood in the form of carbonic acid, and a small amount combines with hemoglobin, forming a temporary compound. Right now we are not talking about this क्योंकि ये जो compound है इसका lungs के साथ कुछ लेना देना नहीं है, because this will get released out by the way of the kidneys. That we will study later. Since we are talking about lungs now, respiration हम पढ़ रहे हैं, so we have to talk about this compound which can be released out by the way of the lungs. So this compound, when it comes near the lungs again, by the way of the blood supply, when it comes near the respiratory surface again, since यहाँ पे carbon dioxide ज़्यादा है, यहाँ पे कम है, so carbon dioxide will move from here to the lungs again. So this carbon dioxide breaks its bond with hemoglobin and it moves into the lungs. And whenever we are exhaling, this carbon dioxide finds its way out of our lungs from our bodies. Okay. So I started with the concept of inhalation, and now with the process of exhalation, the carbon dioxide is released out of the body. So ये जो exchange of carbon dioxide, now see, from the blood, oxygen coming to the tissues and carbon dioxide from the tissues to the blood going. What is this process known as? You have written down the definition. What is this process known as? What is this process known as? Exchange of gases between the blood and the tissues. इसको क्या बोलेंगे? Tissue respiration. And exchange of gases, if I talk about this process जो हुआ है, this is known as नहीं gaseous exchange. Alveolus और blood के बीच जो exchange होता है, इसको बोलेंगे gaseous exchange. And blood and tissues के बीच जो exchange होता है, उसको बोलेंगे tissue respiration. And what is this process? Cellular respiration. So all these things happen one after the other. No, ये simultaneously हो रहा है in our body. When this is happening, all these are happening simultaneously. It is not one after the other. So this is what in the continuity you have to remember. This is gaseous exchange. This is tissue respiration. This is cellular respiration. Okay. So now that we are talking about the entire concept of respiration, all these one after the other. We'll have to write one question now. I will give you 2 minutes time. Go through and tell me if this is understood. The name of the compound, temporary compound, खाली यही याद रखना है. Why does oxygen travel from alveolus to blood, blood to tissues, and carbon dioxide the reverse pathway again? क्यों ऐसा हो रहा है? What are the reasons I told you? And this is how you'll have to remember this. Okay. I'll give you 1 or 2 questions to complete. एक बार देखो. If there is any doubt, पूछो. First you go through. I'll give you 2 minutes. देखो. If it is understood, I explained you 3 processes here. This, and this. All these 3 I explained you in a sequence. Check if it is understood. Should be one. Anything? Go through seriously. Try to understand that what ma'am told just now. क्या मुझे सब समझ में आ रहा है? Check. Did you do some questions from here earlier? Or not at all? I think some questions obviously have done. Done? Any doubt? Doubt है? Anything? Clear है सब? Okay, based on this, first let us do 1 or 2 questions, then we'll have to solve some questions from the book also. Let us take the first one. Name the respiratory pigment present in the blood. The first question, name the respiratory pigment. Name the respiratory pigment present in the blood. Name the respiratory pigment present in the blood. Keep 1 line for the answer. Go to the second, number 2. Number 2, what is the temporary compound formed? What is the temporary compound formed? Temporary compound formed in the blood. What is the temporary compound formed in the blood near the respiratory surface? Near the respiratory surface. Bracket में लिख के रखो for your understanding. Lungs. Respiratory surface मतलब lungs. Near the respiratory surface. Bracket lungs. Next, one line for the answer. Number 3. Number 3. Explain how oxygen and carbon dioxide is transported. Explain how oxygen and carbon dioxide is transported from the lungs to the blood. From the lungs to the tissues. From the lungs to the tissues and back. Okay, the same question you get in different forms. Explain gaseous exchange, transport of oxygen separately, transport of carbon dioxide separately. First 2 questions, just 2 minutes में फटाफट करो. Then the third one I will give you. Then we'll move on to these questions. Fast. करो. The first answer, what to write? Hemoglobin. Spelling correct. Hemoglobin. Second answer, what to write? Full term लिखना है. Oxyhemoglobin. Oxyhemoglobin. Full term लिखना है. Oxyhemoglobin. Now the process of oxygen and carbon dioxide transport. Write down. In points you write, so better for you to understand, read and write. First point. After inhalation, after the process of inhalation, alveoli of the lungs, alveoli, A-L-V-E-O-L-I, plural, alveoli of the lungs are filled with air, comma, oxygen of the inhaled air, diffuses towards the nearby blood vessels. Diffuses towards the nearby blood vessels, comma, forming a temporary compound known as oxyhemoglobin. Forming a temporary compound known as oxyhemoglobin. Full stop. Second point. Check करो spellings, check करो oxyhemoglobin. Second point. Oxyhemoglobin reaches tissues. Oxyhemoglobin reaches the tissues by the bloodstream and breaks down by the bloodstream, blood circulation, bloodstream, and breaks down near the tissue surface. Breaks down near the tissue surface. Comma. Oxygen diffuses towards the tissues. Oxygen diffuses towards the tissues. Third point. The tissue cells. Third point. Tissue cells utilize oxygen. Tissue cells utilize oxygen for the breakdown of glucose, releasing carbon dioxide and energy. Comma. A process known as cellular respiration. A process known as cellular respiration. Full stop. Next point. Number 4, right? 5, 4. Number 4. Carbon dioxide released in the tissues. Carbon dioxide released in the tissues. Carbon dioxide released in the tissues diffuses. Carbon dioxide released in the tissues diffuses towards the nearby blood vessel. Diffuses towards the nearby blood vessel. Diffuses towards the nearby blood vessel, comma. A small fraction combines with hemoglobin forming a temporary compound. And the rest remains in the blood plasma. What is plasma? याद है?
Protein part of the
नहीं. Plasma क्या है? लाइट में क्या
functional segment.
हाँ?
Segment of the
हाँ डालोगी ना एक.
functional segment of the blood.
क्या?
Functional segment of the blood.
ब्लड का फंक्शनल सेगमेंट क्या होता है? 9 से 10 का आया कैसे? प्लाज्मा क्या है?
Ma'am, it is the fluid substance present inside the blood.
Liquid part of the blood. बस
वो
सुने.
आया तभी मैं आंसर कर दिया।
आधा क्लास तो तुम सो रहे, सीधा बैठ.
मैम लिखा भी है। आँख बंद करनी है।
कुछ तो गलत लिखा है।
क्या लिखा? तो क्वेश्चन इज क्या लिखा?
Oxyhemoglobin reaches the tissue by the bloodstream and breaks down near the tissue surface.
गलत तो जरूर कुछ ना कुछ होगा.
Oxygen diffuses towards the tissue. The tissue cells utilize O2 for the breakdown of glucose, realizing CO2
हाँ,
and
realizing
releasing CO2 and energy. A process known as cellular respiration. Carbon dioxide
अच्छा,
released
चलो,
in the
आगे?
tissue diffuses towards
क्या लिखा लास्ट क्या लिखा? Major fraction remains in the blood plasma as carbonic acid. Remains in the blood plasma as carbonic acid. ये लिख के रखो carbonic acid bracket में bicarbonate.
Temporary compound. And the rest remains.
Forming a temporary compound and a small fraction. Forming a temporary compound and the rest remains in the plasma as carbonic acid. ठीक है ना? Rest remains in the plasma as carbonic acid. Within bracket write down this. Full stop. Next point, carbon dioxide diffuses from, next point, carbon dioxide diffuses from the tissues towards, from the blood towards the alveolus. Carbon dioxide diffuses from the blood towards the alveolus and is released out of the body during exhalation.
And released out.
Of the body during exhalation. Okay, so this is what exactly I have explained you, the entire concept of gaseous exchange, tissue respiration and cellular respiration. Okay, last one more concept to understand, and after that I will see if you are able to answer this question. So look at your textbook, there is one activity in page number 87. There is one activity in page 87. All of you look into that activity. That is all related with the concept of respiration just now that we had studied. And the last part of this concept, what is it? Our exhaled air contains a huge amount of carbon dioxide. The air that we exhale out has got almost 4 to 5% of carbon dioxide. So when we are talking about how to test that the exhaled air has carbon dioxide, how can we test that the exhaled air has carbon dioxide? A very simple activity, look into that. What is being done? We take a test tube. And this test tube, what are we taking in this test tube? We are taking lime water. We take lime water, and aqueous lime water that we take, chemical composition is calcium hydroxide. But this what is happening? This lime water now that we are taking is transparent. So now, say suppose I talk about this test tube lime water, you take almost 3/4 of it. Transparent hai, colorless hai. The entire liquid is all colorless and transparent. What are we doing now? We want to test whether exhaled air has carbon dioxide or not. So what are we doing? We are exhaling air here. We are constantly exhaling air here, and if we can continuously keep on doing this, in hardly 5 to 7 minutes, we get to see that this transparent liquid has started becoming little bit foggy and continued for another 4 or 5 minutes, the entire liquid starts becoming little bit whitish. तो पूरा जो liquid था, which was colorless and transparent earlier, in this process of exhalation and continuous exhalation we were doing here, in 5, 7, 10 minutes we initially saw that it is becoming foggy, and now continued for another 5, 7 minutes we get to see that it has become milky. And not only that, the consistency also changes. We get to see that as if some granular substances we get to see in the liquid now. It has become almost a suspension. It has become almost a suspension where we get to see some liquid substances. Then what has happened? What is the new compound formed? The new compound that has got formed is calcium carbonate. Same like if I ask you that take water here in this test tube and put some pieces of chalk, how would you see the suspension? Bit foggy, bit whitish, and kuch granular substances rahega. Exactly same thing what has been seen later. So what is the chemical equation and what has happened? This, by the process of exhalation, what has come in? Carbon dioxide has come in. How is the new compound formed? Lime water react with carbon dioxide, resulting in the formation of calcium carbonate. So what is the new compound formed when we were continuously trying to exhale here? What has happened? What is the chemical reaction that has happened? Why did the lime water turn foggy and milky? What is the reason you write? The lime water turned milky because of the formation of a new compound, calcium carbonate. And continued process definitely gives us a very clear consistency with some granular substances. So look into that activity there. Some questions related to that activity also you'll have to solve now. Look into your volume, all of you. Take out your volume and try solving these questions. Page number is 167. Check, maybe some questions already you have done. Check, I think some already you are done. Nutrition also, I may give you some question, but I feel some already you have done. Page 167, try with question number 2. 167, can you see? Question number 2, tick karo. Question number 2. Question number 3. Number 5. Tick, number 5. 167. Now go to the next page, 168. 168, question number 10. Question number 10. Go to number 169, question number 11. Go to next question, page 170. Go to page 170, question nutrition, under nutrition 1 and 2 and 3. Under respiration 5 and 6, 7 and 8. Under respiration 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. Come on, start doing your work. Complete all these questions. In the notebook. Diagram based question number 11 you can write here itself. Number 10 and 11 you can write in the volume itself. So you can finish with number 10 and 11 first and then go with the rest of the questions. I want all of you to complete your question answers very nice and in your notebook. Only 10 and 11 volume mein pehle kar lo. 10 and 11 in the volume you do, all of you. Start fast. All these questions you should finish. Complete karo. Any question doubtful, you'll have to clarify right now. You don't have your book? सबके पास है volume? चलो. Number 10 and 11, first you finish in your volume. There only you write down the answer. For the rest, maybe 1 or 2 questions I will give you the answer. Fragmentation. Fragmentation ki fermentation.
Fermentation.
Fermentation. What was fermentation? Breakdown of glucose in the absence of oxygen. Alcoholic fermentation. Today also I revised that topic. Fermentation is the breakdown of glucose in the absence of oxygen to release what? Fermentation mein what is the main product? What is the major product in the process of fermentation? Ethyl alcohol. All of you do your work. Start. You have to finish.
हमें डायग्राम्स नहीं बनाने ना
Which one? Which one?
वो जो हार्ट लंग्स के बने हैं
No.
सिर्फ आंसर
Are you able to answer? Number 10 and 11 मैंने बोला है कि वो पहले कर लो. Number 10 and 11 do first. Let us discuss those answers. Number 10, 11 पहले करो from the volume. Number 10 and 11 कर लो पहले. Number 10, is it all done? Number 10 के answers मिले sir?
Yes.
Number 10, let me just check. Number 10,
respiratory structure
that is, number 10 is this one, no? Now,
respiratory structure
both are placed externally in the body. So what is that? Respiratory structures of two different animals, fish and human, are being shown. Okay. Now observe A and B, select one characteristic that holds true for both. Number 1, both are placed internally in the body of the animal. Is it true?
yes
One is the lungs showing, the other is the gills showing. Are both placed inside the body? Both are placed internally in the body. That is correct? Internally in the body? Why not?
हम गिल्स तो सरफेस पे है ना
So it is inside only, no?
इनसाइड तो नहीं बॉडी के अंदर तो नहीं सरफेस पे बॉडी
But covered by the operculum, no? It is covered by the operculum. So what are the features? What are the characteristics? Both are placed internally in the body of the animal. Both have thin and moist surfaces for gaseous exchange. Both are poorly supplied with blood vessels to conserve energy. in both the blood returns to the heart after being oxygenated. Now, which are the statements you have to mark? Select one characteristic that holds true for both of them. Select one characteristic that holds true for both of them. Both are present internally. Okay. Not exactly inside. Both have thin and moist surfaces for gaseous exchange. Poorly supplied, no, in both of them.
B.
Blood returns to the heart after being oxygenated. B is correct, but in both the blood returns to the heart. B is also correct. In both the blood returns to the heart after oxygenated. Here B and D both are correct. Both are placed internally inside the body. Here, for some, it is not covered with operculum. Yes, that is also true. But if it is covered with operculum, we will consider internal. But since some, it is not covered with operculum. So, B and D. It is not only B here. B and D both are correct because fishes also have got heart. And from the gills, after purification, the blood moved to the heart. So, B and D. Okay. Moving to 11 now. Observe the diagram. What does it help to conclude when the person is exhaling? Okay, number 1. Percentage of carbon dioxide is more in inhaled air. Is that true? False. Is more in the exhaled air. Fermentation occur in the presence of oxygen. False. Fermentation always occurs in the absence. Percentage of carbon dioxide is more in the exhaled air. True. Fermentation occurs in presence of carbon dioxide. No. So the option correct is C. Now go ahead with the rest of the questions.
What does residual volume of air mean?
Residual volume means after we exhale out air, is the lungs absolutely empty? No, some 500 ml of the air is still there inside. That is known as residual volume of air. Is it mentioned in the question? How? What is the frame of the question? Read out. Acha. Residual volume you can just mention with bracket लिख के रखो. In case later you are referring, residual air means air left in the lungs even after exhalation. What is the next question I asked you?
Second one.
Text questions, those diagram based questions are done, right? Diagram based questions are done. Now after that, what is the next question? I asked you number 2. In living organisms during respiration, which of the following products are not formed if oxygen is not available? Look into those questions. In living organisms during respiration, which of the following products not formed? Remember the criteria is oxygen is not available. Oxygen not available. Carbon dioxide and water. Oxygen is not available. Carbon dioxide and alcohol. Lactic acid and alcohol. Carbon dioxide and lactic acid are not formed if oxygen is not available. Products are not formed, you have to write. Oxygen is not available. If oxygen is not available, lactic acid is formed. So option B and option C is
मैम ऐसे ही लगा लो।
Continue with the rest. Here the options are not correct. Keep doing. Keep. Why you all are talking? I gave you work to do. Complete karo fast. Look into question number 2. Look into question number 2. For question number 2, the correct option would be 9. C. C, you cannot, individually the products are correct, but the combination would not be possible. Lactic acid and no, C is correct. Alcohol and lactic acid together never is released. So what is the frame of the question? You'll have to remember they are talking about a condition where oxygen is absent. Oxygen is absent, तो lactic acid तो form होता ही है, alcohol भी form होता है, but they are not together formed.
लैक्टिक एसिड तो डेफिशिएंसी में फॉर्म होता है।
हाँ, so ठीक है, absence में भी no, but absence, temporary absence we can consider, no, in the skeletal muscles, temporary absence we can consider, that is also an anaerobic condition considered, but only difference ये है कि इसको temporary consider किया जाता है, and for the yeast it is permanent. But here you'll have to remember, the condition is anaerobic situation में which are the products not formed, that is the question. Anaerobic में carbon dioxide and water is it formed? हाँ, alcohol के साथ carbon dioxide and water is there. Anaerobic में carbon dioxide and alcohol is it formed? It is B is also correct. If I talk about ethanol, that equation carbon dioxide के साथ ethanol is also there. What is not correct is number C. Lactic acid and alcohol together is never released. Lactic acid separately, alcohol separately. What about the fourth option? Fourth option is carbon dioxide and lactic acid. That is also correct. Carbon dioxide के साथ lactic acid. Actually, this fourth option is also wrong. You just correct this option. हाँ, इसमें कुछ तो mistake है. Correct option है C, but carbon dioxide and lactic acid will not go together. So you write carbon dioxide काट के वहाँ पे water लिखो, lactic acid and water. Then appropriately C is correct, lactic acid and alcohol. D option वैसे भी wrong है, but check करो. अभी read and try to understand the question. Read and try to understand. Lactic acid and alcohol together can never be released, so that's the option that you have to mark. Anaerobic situation में what is not released? That is the question. Go ahead.
Respiration के 6 का क्या?
Respiration.
ये 6 का.
What is that question? Number.
2 का क्या? और
Which one?
6.
Number 6. The breakdown of glucose has taken the following pathway. Glucose. What to write up there? Glucose. The breakdown of glucose you'll have to write down. The site A and B respectively are to be mentioned. Glucose A will be cytoplasm. Glucose to pyruvate takes place where in the cytoplasm? Correct है? तो A आएगा cytoplasm plus pyruvate plus energy, and B will be what? Pyruvate is यहाँ पे energy is a misprint. यहाँ पे energy नहीं आएगा, ये काटो इसको. Pyruvate straight away arrow आएगा यहाँ पे. ये energy काटो, that's a error in printing. Pyruvate and then the arrow. Pyruvate and then the arrow. Lactic acid and energy. So B, what would be the answer?
मैम रिपीट करेंगे क्या?
Yes, I'll tell you. 1 minute ago. So B, what will be the answer? Option D is correct here. Check करो. Cytoplasm and pyruvate, what is A? Cytoplasm to pyruvate. मतलब they are asking glycolysis. Cytoplasm to pyruvate, what is the location? A. A, what is the location? Cytoplasm. Okay. Come to the next one. Pyruvate के बाद energy है वो strike out that word. Energy, that is not an appropriate word there. Pyruvate के बाद arrow and then lactic acid and energy. Above the arrow B है. What should be B? Meaning where is this process happening? So B should be muscle cells, but oxygen rich muscle cells ki oxygen deficient muscle cells? Deficient. So option B is there. Oxygen deficient muscle cells. This is the correct option. देखो पढ़ के देखो. Try to understand.
Can you tell the answer for code 1 nutrition?
Number 3. This one. No? This one. What do we actually mean when we say that enzymes are specific in their action? Okay, this all of you have to write in your notebook. Likho, which page is that?
170.
170. Write the question number 3 in your notebook. Check, all of you have to finish all these questions that I gave you. Some of you are going ahead. Karo fast. Write that question number 3. 170, no? Page 170. Question number 3. Likho. What is that question?
What do we actually do when we say that the enzymes are specific in their action?
Likho. Write that question in your book. Answer is enzymes are chemical substances that break down. Enzymes are chemical substances that break down complex compounds to simpler forms. Complex compounds to simpler forms. Full stop. Every enzyme will act ACT. Every enzyme will act only on Every enzyme will act only on a specific substrate. Will act only on a specific substrate. For example, every enzyme will act only on a specific substrate. For example, pepsin will break down complex proteins. Break down complex proteins. Pepsin will break down complex proteins to peptides. And trypsin will act on peptides. Trypsin will act on peptides but not on complex proteins. Trypsin will act on peptides but not on complex proteins. Full stop. So here you are mentioning that both are protein digesting enzymes, but pepsin will not act on this and trypsin will not act on this. एक specific enzyme के लिए एक ही specific substrate रहता है. Okay? Go ahead. देखो बाकी क्या है, complete करो fast. There is one more question with the, when you reach there, there is one more question with the respiration rate of fishes, something is there. हो गया? क्या लिखा है उसका?
Rate of breathing in terrestrial organism is much slower than seen in the aquatic organism. Why? Why is your research बोला?
Dissolve oxygen वो concept लिखना है.
assertion reason.
हाँ?
Assertion reason.
Assertion reason वाला. इस तरह के questions आएंगे. At least 2-3 questions will be there. Assertion reason you'll have to understand, reason them correctly. Answers you should write complete. Spelling errors, key terms में spelling errors नहीं होना चाहिए. Concept should be clearly mentioned in your answer. Key terms should be highlighted. So focus a little bit on your presentation also now that you write an exam. Always think about that and get yourself prepared.
They are both assertion and reason.
हाँ. नहीं आ रहा समझ में? Number 1. Okay, assertion. Let us check number 5. Let us check number 5. इसके options नहीं दिए हैं ना? अच्छा, इसके options नहीं दिए हुए, but then we'll have to. चलो, we'll do this. Number 5, check page 170. The rate of breathing in aquatic organism is much higher, much faster than terrestrial. True है कि false? Rate of breathing in aquatic organism is much faster than terrestrial. True कि false? This is true, no? This first statement is true. Why some of you are saying false? True है. I explained you know. For a fish, the rate of breathing is always much faster than us. We are terrestrial animals. Animals on the land will always have a lesser breathing rate, lower breathing rate. So, ये true है. Let us talk about the next. The amount of oxygen dissolved in the water is very high as compared to amount in the oxygen in the air. This is false. Amount of oxygen dissolved in the water is much less than air. सो इसका करेक्ट ऑप्शन जो चूज करोगे, A is true and R is false and R is not the correct explanation for it. Okay, so A is true, इसके options नहीं दिए हुए हैं यहाँ पे, so here option should be A is true, R is false and R is not the correct explanation. 7 का
सी ऑप्शन आएगा जस्ट ए इज टू आर इज
हाँ, मतलब यही ऑप्शन आएगा, यहाँ पे तो ऑप्शन नहीं दिया हुआ है, तो ऑप्शन कौन सा करेक्ट करना है? A is true, R is false and R is not the correct explanation.
R is not the correct explanation वाला जो स्टेटमेंट है वो वैसा है, A and R both are true but R is not the correct
Correct,
explanation.
हाँ, नहीं यहाँ पे एक और this A and R both are not true. R is wrong.
तो R wrong है ना, तो C वाला स्टेटमेंट आएगा, A is true, R
वो
is
तो
false.
C जरूरी नहीं है, वो तो शफल रहेगा, नहीं, वो कभी इधर उधर होगा, वो C कभी भी ऐसा स्टैंडर्ड C नहीं रहेगा. What are you saying? What are you saying? कौन सा क्वेश्चन? क्वेश्चन क्या है?
डायग्राम ऑफ ह्यूमन रेस्पिरेटरी सिस्टम.
हाँ, अच्छा, ह्यूमन एलिमेंट, ह्यूमन डाइजेस्टिव सिस्टम का हो गया सबका डायग्राम दिखाया सबने?
यस मैम.
Did I ask you to draw both these diagrams? You'll have to draw and show me. I think some of you have drawn, but ज़्यादातर सबका नहीं हुआ. In another fresh page, लिखो, लिख के रखो. This will be the homework for next day. 8 week का time है. You should find out time to do this. नहीं तो घर भेजूंगी आप लोग.
तो जिसने पहले किया उसका,
हाँ?
जिसने पहले किया
जिसने पहले क्या दिखाओ तो सही, कैसे किया एलिमेंट के
तीन
करना.
बार करवाया था.
3 बार मैंने कराया, कैसे कराया 3 बार?
एक बार हो गया.
Fine. बाकी लोगों का नहीं हुआ ना? हाँ, those of you had shown me. I remember only some of you showed. You had not that day also. You did not do till now. You remember? क्यों? फिर से भूल गई. Okay. जिन लोगों ने नहीं किया, now you write 2 questions. You will have to complete this work. Right? Fresh page में लिखो. These questions you can complete. More than half of the page should be there. Write down the question. Draw a neat, well-labeled diagram. Those of you finished with digestive system will only do the respiratory. Draw a neat, well-labeled diagram of human digestive system. Draw a neat, well-labeled diagram of human digestive system. दूसरे पेज में लिखो, draw a neat, well-labeled diagram of human respiratory system. Neat, well-labeled diagram of human respiratory system. Okay? NCERT, nutrition and respiration, all of you will read at home. Nutrition, the part on respiration and nutrition, all of you will read at home. Complete the diagrams. Okay, we'll continue next class. What you have to do is, first of all, I constantly check your meaning. जो लेक्चर नोट्स दिए हैं, और here न्यूट्रिशन के जो पार्ट डिस्क्रिप्शन जो पार्ट है वो गो करो एंड देन न्यूट्रिशन के एक पार्ट क्वेश्चन है. देखो you know the answers to all these questions. काफी सारा आ लगता है इन आंसर्स अच्छे दिया हुआ है. check at the end of the book. NCERT के आंसर्स और मिलेगा. check करना.
Explain.
इसका आंसर्स सब दिया हुआ है. और क्वेश्चन
नहीं हो गया अरे पेंसिल की
What number of questions I have done? Nutrition यहाँ पे Question देखो, do I know the answer? नहीं समझ में आ रहा है तो पढ़ना
आवाज नहीं आ रही एंकर या